Imagine this. You're young, good-looking, and built like an athlete. You're the pride of your high school, the kid everyone knows is going places. That was Burt Reynolds in the early 1950s. Fast, strong, confident. People compared him to a superhero before superheroes even filled movie theaters. On the football field, he wasn't just good. He was unstoppable. Coaches whispered that he could go pro. Recruiters lined up. Newspapers called him All-State. He was the kind of athlete small towns build legends around, but fate didn't care. One wrong tackle, one torn knee, and Burt's dream began to crumble. He tried to push through, tried to play again, but his body betrayed him. And just when he thought it couldn't get worse, life threw him something straight out of a horror movie. At just 19 years old, Burt was driving on a Florida road when he crashed into a stalled truck. The other driver ran off, leaving Burt broken, bleeding, and alone. His car? Destroyed. His body? A mess of internal injuries. He nearly died. Doctors didn't sugarcoat it. His football career was over. The golden boy, the small-town hero, the kid destined for the NFL? Gone. Overnight. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of becoming just another sad story of a high school star who never made it, Burt's crash opened a new door. One that would lead him to fame so big. It made him the most bankable man in Hollywood. So how does a broken athlete become the #1 movie star in the world? By accident, literally. While recovering from his injuries, Burt signed up for a college English class. The professor, Watson B. Duncan, heard Burt read Shakespeare out loud and stopped him mid-sentence. "You've got something?" he said. At first, Burt laughed it off, but Duncan insisted, "Get on that stage." So Burt did, and from the very first moment under the stage lights, something clicked. He later admitted, "It felt just like the first time I walked on a football field, like, this is home." One play later, he was winning acting awards. A scholarship dropped into his lap. Suddenly, Burt wasn't just the football kid with a busted knee. He was a rising star. New York theater followed, then television. And soon, Hollywood was buzzing about this young man with the square jaw, the swagger, and a magnetism that made women swoon and men jealous. But here's the wild part. The studios didn't even care if he could act. One executive famously said, "I don't care if he can act. Anyone who has this effect on women deserves a break." Think about that. Hollywood basically told him, "You're too good looking not to be a star." And they were right. Within a few years, Burt Reynolds went from washing dishes to starring in hit TV shows, and by the time Deliverance came out in 1972, he was unstoppable. From Broken Dreams to Box Office King, from Buddy Reynolds, the football kid, to Burt Reynolds, Hollywood's ultimate leading man. Burt Reynolds didn't just steal scenes, he stole hearts. And trust me, the tabloids ate it up. First came Judy Carn, his first wife. That marriage burned out fast. Then came flings with actresses, singers, and even country legend Tammy Wynette. But the relationship that fans couldn't stop talking about, Sally Field. They called her America's sweetheart, and together they were Hollywood royalty. Burt later admitted, decades later, that Sally was the love of my life. But here's the scandal. Even though he loved her, he let her slip away. Why? Fame, ego, jealousy. Take your pick. By the time he realized what he'd lost, it was too late. And then came Lonnie Anderson, the stunning blonde actress everyone knew from WKRP in Cincinnati. They looked perfect on the outside, Hollywood's golden couple. In 1988, they even adopted a son together, Quentin. But behind closed doors, it was chaos, arguments, affairs, and eventually lawsuits. Burt accused Lonnie of spending his money like water. She accused him of cheating with a cocktail waitress. The divorce, ugly, tabloid gold. And through all of it, there was Quentin. A quiet boy suddenly caught in the crossfire of one of Hollywood's messiest breakups. Burt swore he'd be the kind of father his own dad never was. Affectionate, loving, always saying, "I love you." But with his career spiraling and his marriage exploding, it wasn't easy. And if you thought his love life was a disaster, wait until you see what happened to his bank account. At his peak, Burt Reynolds wasn't just rich, he was mega rich. He was pulling in $10 million a year. He owned mansions, sports cars, even his own ranch in Florida with a petting zoo. To the outside world, he was living the dream. But behind the scenes, Burt was burning through cash faster than he could earn it. Bad investments, failed restaurant chains, a lifestyle that made lavish look cheap. He once poured $20 million into ventures that collapsed almost instantly. Then came the divorce. Lonnie Anderson walked away with massive alimony and child support. The courtroom drama dragged his name through the mud and his wallet through the shredder. By the mid-1990s, the unthinkable happened. Burt Reynolds was broke. The same man who had once been Hollywood's highest-paid actor filed for bankruptcy. He owed $11 million and had only $6 million in assets left. The final gut punch? He lost his beloved ranch, the place where he'd filmed Smokey and the Bandit, the home filled with memories of Quentin growing up, gone, sold off in foreclosure. The king of cool, the man who defined swagger in the 1970s, was now drowning in debt, his empire crumbling around him. But if you think money was the only battle he fought, you're wrong. The next chapter of Burt Reynolds' life would be filled with pain, addiction, and a fight for survival. On screen, Burt Reynolds was invincible. The grin, the laugh, the mustache that became a legend, he was the guy every man wanted to be and every woman wanted to be with. But behind closed doors, he was crumbling. Years of doing his own stunts left his body wrecked. Cracked ribs, torn muscles, broken bones. He shrugged them off when the cameras were rolling. But by the 1980s, the pain was unbearable. Then came the accident. In 1984, while filming City Heat with Clint Eastwood, Burt was hit in the face with a steel chair during a fight scene. His jaw shattered. He couldn't chew. He couldn't eat solid food. He lost 30 pounds in just a few weeks. Hollywood whispered, "Is Burt dying? Does he have AIDS?" The rumors destroyed him. He was weak, gaunt, barely recognizable. And to cope with the pain, doctors prescribed painkillers. Soon, Burt wasn't just hurt. He was hooked. Addiction dragged him deeper into darkness. Roles dried up. His once golden career seemed finished. Tabloids mocked him, Hollywood forgot him, and the man who once ruled the box office was now a punchline. But Burt wasn't done yet. In 1997, he shocked the world with his comeback role in Boogie Nights. Critics cheered, audiences were floored. He won a Golden Globe and even got an Oscar nomination. Yet even then, Burt was complicated. He hated the film, hated the role, and clashed with director Paul Thomas Anderson. At one point, he almost hit him. But whether he liked it or not, the performance proved one thing. Burt Reynolds was still a star. By the 2000s, Burt's swagger was back, at least on the outside. He made cameos, played fatherly roles, and charmed talk show audiences with his wit. But behind that trademark smile, his body was falling apart. Years of stunt work had shredded his back and knees. He underwent multiple surgeries. He battled heart problems. Each time he bounced back, but each time he came back weaker. Friends said he was in constant pain. But Burt had a rule: never let the public see you suffer. So he kept cracking jokes, kept signing autographs, kept playing the role of Burt Reynolds, even when he could barely walk. Then, in 2010, came open-heart surgery. Most men wouldn't survive what he went through. Burt did, but it took a toll. He grew thinner, frailer, his once booming voice softer, and yet he refused to quit. He still worked, still acted, even signed on for Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But fate stepped in one last time. Before he could film his scenes, Burt Reynolds was gone. On September 6th, 2018, Burt died of a heart attack. He was 82 years old. Hollywood mourned. Fans wept. But what came next? His will, his shocking omission of his only son, turned grief into scandal. When the news broke that Burt Reynolds had passed, Hollywood bowed its head. Fans remembered the laugh, the charm, the swagger. But just days later, another headline exploded across the tabloids. Burt Reynolds cut his son out of his will. It sounded cold, cruel, heartless, the kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about a star. Had Burt really abandoned his only child? The public was furious. How could a father, a man who always claimed he loved his son more than anything, just erase him from his fortune? But here's the twist most people never heard. Burt wasn't being cruel. He was being smart. Instead of naming Quentin in his will, Burt set up a private trust fund, a move designed to protect his son from lawyers, lawsuits, and public battles over money. It meant Quentin would be taken care of for life, without the circus of probate court or the risk of greedy hands trying to grab what wasn't theirs. But of course, tabloids don't care about legal strategies. They wanted scandal. They wanted betrayal. And for a while, the world believed Burt Reynolds had turned his back on the one person who mattered most to him. The truth? Quentin was the only person Burt never stopped protecting. So who is Quentin Reynolds? Unlike his father, Quentin never chased the spotlight. While Burt was splashed across magazine covers, Quentin stayed hidden, avoiding red carpets and cameras. Some say it was because of his parents' messy divorce. Others believe Burt shielded him from fame on purpose, trying to give his son the quiet, stable life he never had. Quentin grew up between two worlds, the glitter of Hollywood and the chaos of custody battles. Reporters chased him, but Quentin kept his head down. He went to school, lived with his mom, and rarely spoke publicly about his dad. When Burt died, Quentin didn't give interviews, didn't cash in on his father's name. He mourned privately, but people close to him say he loved his father deeply, and despite all the noise, Burt loved him back just as fiercely. The will may have looked like betrayal, but in reality, it was Burt's final act of fatherhood, making sure Quentin was secure, safe, and untouchable by Hollywood's vultures. In the end, Burt Reynolds, the superstar who had lived his life in front of the cameras, left his greatest role for the shadows, being a father in the only way he knew how. Burt Reynolds wasn't perfect. He loved hard, lost big, spent recklessly, and burned bridges. He battled addiction, heartbreak, and pain most people never saw, but through it all, he lived. He once said, "I've made a lot of dumb mistakes in my life, but believe me, I had a hell of a good time making them." And maybe that's what made Burt different. He wasn't some untouchable Hollywood idol. He was human. He stumbled, he laughed at himself, he got back up. He let the world see his flaws, and somehow that made people love him more. And from football fields in Florida to Hollywood's biggest stages, from the highest paid actor in the world to a man fighting just to stand tall, Burt Reynolds became more than just a movie star. He became a symbol of charisma, of resilience, of living life on your own terms. When the final credits rolled, he left behind more than films. He left a lesson. Fame fades, money disappears, but the impact you make, the love you give, the joy you bring, the stories you tell, that's what lives forever. And Burt's story? It's not just Hollywood history. It's legend.